Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast-producing badass.
And I'm John Thomas. If it's haunted, cursed, or just plain weird, I'm into it. From paranormal encounters to horror movie deep dives, urban legends, cryptids, count me in.
I'm BJ Sewura, an aspiring paranormal musician who plays live for the dead because the living just doesn't want to hear me.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our paranormal pals out there? In today's episode, we'll be exploring the world of the paranormal with special guest Vince Kelien, the Urban Investigator. Vince is a star of Beacons TV's Urban Investigator. He's been to almost 400 haunted and abandoned buildings, including Waverly Hills. Welcome to the show, Vince.
Hello.
So, you are the Urban Investigator. And, that speaks for itself, I'm sure. You just smile.
It wouldn't be so funny anymore if when I first started doing content and putting out ghost content and abandoned content and stuff like that, I felt like I needed an extra, a thing. Like if you go anywhere online, Kalani Smith came up with KGH, which is Kalani Ghost Hunter. And Sam and Colby, it was just Sam and Colby, whatever, but it's a household name. You can't think of Jason Hawes without Ghost Hunters. You can't think of Shane Pittman without Holzer Files. Sean Austin, 28 Days Haunted, Haunted Nights, Steve Broughton, Dylan Stevens, and, all these different people, they always had a thing, right? And I thought that I needed something. So whenever I was trying to come up with some kind of name or some kind of, brand, I was like, okay, well, what do I do? I urbex, and it's urban exploring, and I'm a ghost hunter, so it's paranormal investigations. So I just put two of the two together, which was Urban Investigator. And, I wouldn't laugh at it if my nephew hadn't called me the Urban Masturbator. So I'm just kind of, everything just makes me really laugh anymore.
Is that going to be a t-shirt on your website?
No. But I'm kind of getting into a little bit more stuff like that with merch and stuff like that. So there's a presentation that I'm doing this year at every major event that I'm featured at called Abandonment Issues. So along with Danger Design, short plug.
Michael Castro,
along with Michael Castro, he literally helps me out with everything, runs my site, even does he's the one who prints the merch, he hand prints everything. And with a little bit of help from him, we've done some redesign for merch this year to where you're not just going to get this at a convention that you go to. So Abandonment Issues is essentially it's a presentation that shows 10 locations that thrive with ownership, preservation, and restoration versus 10 that are neglected by its owners, whether it's the state, a private owner, or whatever the case, that just showing the differences in between the two and the money that the private owners or the state misses out on when they let these buildings falter. And that's what the presentation is for. So we've kind of ran off of that idea to make new shirts. Because I also want to draw people into my table, right? So if you're going to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash and you're going for Shane Pittman and Dave Schrader, but you didn't know I was a guest, and you come up on my table and you see a shirt that says I have issues really big on it. We'll typically draw someone in, but what they don't see is right underneath in the back, it says abandonment. So I'm pulling in 3 to 4 different real-time issues that I've experienced in my life, whether it was preservation, restoration, or actually having real-time, real-life abandonment issues. It's I'm for anyone that knows me, I'm very outspoken online when it comes to mental health, advocacy for people in the LGBTQ. I think it's IA plus. They keep adding stuff. I don't remember all the time. But anyone who's any kind of different descent, whether it's culture or it's race or whatever the case, it's one of those things where, we always joke and say that, people aren't racist because, they have one black friend. But in all reality, for me, what it is that I have black family members. I have gay family members. I have trans family members. My family tree is so far off the grid that I just want to, I think it's important to advocate for different people. It sucks when you go to a convention and it's nothing but white dudes. You don't see women. And if you do, they're over in a corner. You don't see black creators. You don't see Hispanic creators. You don't see this and this and that, all these different people that are getting invited to these things. So that's kind of, I think that you honestly, now that I'm a little bit older, you see more of that from me trying to like advocate for other people more than you see my ghost content anymore.
But I appreciate, because that is something I have noticed about what you push out through your social media content, being that we are connected on social media. I can see the posts that come out and you stay on my algorithms. So Facebook must be like, look at this. You want to see this. But what I do admire is that you're not afraid to put your platform, or I should say, you're not afraid to use your platform to advocate for all of those things, whether it be preservation or social rights or anything that could be a hot topic, right? You
Yeah.
are not afraid to put you and your brand and everything that you've built up with that, knowing that it could risk it, which I think is really admirable, because a lot of people, I feel, stay silent because of that.
You say that, but like, okay, so one of my friends I always go to right after I make a post, and I'm like, you think this is too fucked up? Do you think I screwed up? Do you think like this is like a problem? Like I'm very self-conscious of myself, and sometimes I get into my own bubble, and I'll just be like, you know what? And it doesn't matter, what your political beliefs are. I might jump up there and just be like, fuck Trump, or it might be, fuck Biden. I go both ways. I don't care whichever. I don't give a shit. But here's the thing too, though, is that I understand that this is a podcast and podcasts are meant to beef up people and everything else. This isn't for any of you to like me, because I don't care either way. And I'm kind of going into 2026 that way, with that mindset. If you don't like what I post, if you think that what I post is outlandish, or you think that it's too much, or, you don't like me because of something I did in the past, that's fine. You don't have to eat at my table, but I'm also not doing anything to make you like me. Because I don't care if I don't care if you like me, regardless of whatever it is I post. If you have a different political view, or you think that orbs are actually ghosts, or you think that women belong in the kitchen, I don't care what your fucking take is. I'm not doing it for you to like me regardless. And I've had some people come to me and tell me that I try too hard, or that I try to push my narrative and everything else. And, I don't care.
I think that's a good example to set, especially in our community, though, because when we're talking about our community, I mean just the general metaphysical, paranormal, not just para,
Yeah.
right? Like the expanded community, because so many of us are taught to swallow what we believe and the things we think and the things we feel, because it's crazy, or it's not acceptable, or it's, delusional, or any of the other words we've been called. And so to set that example of, I have a voice, I'm going to fucking use it. If you don't like it, don't listen.
Yeah.
And it is important to remember those voices, so that I don't know, just so that we can tell our stories and we can share our experiences, and those that want to partake in it, great. Like you said, if you want to sit at my table, great. And if not, no worries, no stress.
I got a lot of shit last year because somebody said that I was a self-proclaimed safe space. I got a lot of shit for that last year. For anyone who's listening or watching, just right before, this is the first time I've met BJ or John. John hasn't said a single word since we jumped into the call. The first thing that I said could have been super offensive to BJ because I said BJ looked like an Uso. So if you're a wrestling fan, you know what I'm talking about. But to me, it's just because of his skin color that makes him look like he's Samoan. And it could have been super offensive. But at the end of the day, me telling you that BJ, that you look like a fucking 5-time tag team champion on a wrestling show, I think is more of like a very complimentary thing because the dude's not a bad looking guy to begin with.
No, I appreciate that.
But what I'm saying is that there's so many different things it could have came off, right? Like if you set your feelings aside for a second, BJ, you could have been like, you know what? I don't fucking like that. And I don't like you. And I'm not going to talk this entire podcast.
So full disclaimer, John's just a quiet guy, but the second you start talking about Waverly Hills, he's going to be all in.
I already yelled at BJ because he's going this year. So,
Well, BJ, when you're in town, let me know and we'll go get dinner.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always everyone always wants to talk Waverly.
That's just one of John's favorite places.
No, I understand. It's ingrained to the point to where there's probably like 12 items that are in my background right now that came straight from Waverly. I have not had a great relationship when it comes to Waverly. And this is part of my, people say new year, new me. No, this is just me being who I've always wanted to be and not be in the fucking public eye like a puppet. But I have never had a solid, good relationship at Waverly. Waverly's always been my second home. But due to certain people, there's always a problem. There's always an issue. And it makes me want to bawl my eyes out every time I post about it, every time that I put a new video out. For anyone and everyone, I always tell that Waverly is a must, regardless of my feelings. And the reason why is because I love her to death, but me and the owner, we, for whatever reason, we just don't get along. And that's not shots here. So, for the one person that's always clipping things and sending it to her, there's no need to do that because there's no animosity here. But Waverly is one of those places that is not scary. There's nothing scary about it. It is a relaxing, what do the kids call it? It's a vibe. It's one of those places where I've cried just sitting in the hallway because of maybe I had problems at home or I had problems with other people, and I've cried in the hallway in where I have slept in the building. I have talked to people that weren't there about my problems. And even though they don't talk back, you feel like they're talking back, and they give you that sort of, the people that are there that aren't, if that makes sense. They give you some kind of clarity, some kind of, what we were talking about earlier, safe space. And you can tell them anything and everything that you want to. It's like having a girlfriend, a boyfriend, or a spouse without, maybe you back the car into the garage door and you're really afraid about how the partner is going to feel about it. You could just, it's like having that partner without the pushback. And that's what makes me so sad about it, is because I don't go up there that much anymore. I think it's been about a year and a half since I've been back. And it was my all-time. People ask me all the time, what's the scariest place? What's the craziest ghost story I have? And, all of those things, with what you said, I've been to a little under or over, I can't remember anymore, but 400 locations in the last 4 or 5 years. And it always comes back to Waverly. It never changes. I don't think that I have had a more predominant piece of evidence or a more predominant experience than I've ever had at Waverly. Now, I've had some scary shit happen at other locations, but because I'm biased and because, that was my home for so long, I don't think Waverly is always the topic. I mean, I spent half my life up there. At one point in time, I even lived in the shitty apartments down at the bottom of the hill because it was just easier. But, I started at Waverly in 2010. I went up there in 2009 to film this really, really makeshift indie film called Revenant. It's supposed to be a vampire movie. And, while I was there, I just kind of fell in love. And, I think we only filmed there for maybe an hour in 2 days or something like that. And in 2010, I back when Facebook was, new to the public and not just to college dorm rooms, I had saw that, Waverly was having a audition for their local haunted house. And, I went up there and I was like, I live down the street. I also do handyman work. I can do this, I can do that. And it was just kind of a, magic from there, I guess. And that led to, I've done private tours, I've done public tours, I've done ghost tours, history tours. I've hosted YouTubers, TV personalities, all those fun things, but none of that stuff matters. We all have our home location, and I don't think that people speak about it enough. But Waverly is that one place that doesn't matter if I'm there or not, I can't get away from it.
Do you think the spirit's there because you've been there for so long? It's just, you're comfortable with them, they're comfortable with you. It's just a familiarity at that point, and it's just always a fun place to go back to because of that.
So I think what it is. So when the lawsuit was going on at Waverly, I had been asked to come back, and I had been gone for like 5 years or something at that point. I hadn't been back in a while. So when I came back, so they were doing things differently, and it's fine, whatever the case. I'm not a fan of how the lawsuit went down with either side. I'm just not a fan of any of the politics, not a fan of how things happened, whatever the case. A lot of people got hurt during the lawsuit. And that's the owners too. The owners got hurt as well. This isn't one-sided, but I had been asked to come back, and the day that I came back, they was like, do you want to stay for tours and for the public? And I was like, yeah, sure. So went downstairs, got my staff shirts again, for like the 4th time. And caboosed some of the tours for the night. And then at the end of the tours, they started up the public. I found myself in an area where some of the other staff and some of the guests were in a room that had been closed up for a long time. And when I walked up on it, I was like, this isn't supposed to be open. What is this? Why is this open? Whatever. And as soon as I walked in, I think they were running like, what is it called? Ghost phonic or necrophonic. And, I'm not big on apps or anything, but there are some things, that come through the apps and stuff where you're like, wow, that's crazy. we're running necrophonic. I walk into the room, and whoever the guy was at the time, they was like, "Do you know who just came back after all this time?" And it was like Vince, and it said, and right after it said love, and like I said, I'm not a big fan of apps or whatever the case, but I think that Waverly is just so ingrained in me and ingrained in the building that it doesn't matter where I'm at. I mean, she's on my mind so often that it's like I have a fourth kid.
So you mentioned you went there for the first time for a film production and then continued being connected to it afterwards.
Yeah.
So was Waverly then the first place that you did a paranormal investigation on?
Yes. At the time, I didn't believe in ghosts either.
And look at you now.
I didn't at all. I didn't believe in the paranormal. I thought all of y'all were fucking out of your minds and
Of course.
a bunch of crazy lunatics and everything else.
Yeah, we still are.
First day back, or the first day there, like actually working, I think we were putting up the haunted house. And I tell the story on every podcast. And the only reason why is because everyone always asks, how'd your first day go? But
I want to know how your last day went. No, I'm kidding.
I'll tell you that one too. That one's actually kind of fun. The first day is hot, middle August. And as you know, with these buildings, these concrete buildings, they retain heat. So if it's like 100 degrees outside, it's 115 in the building. If it's cold, it's like 20 degrees outside. It's got to be like 10 inside the building because they retain the weather. So I'm in there. It's full stripper atmosphere, shirts off, tool belts on, putting up these walls for this maze. And it's like 5:00. Tina and Charlie went to go get food, whatever. And they didn't have a guard for the day. So they were just real quick, just make sure you keep an eye on stuff, whatever. So I'm, they were only gone for maybe 5 minutes or something like that. Like I was pulling out as they were pulling in. And I grab my tools, head down the hallway, walk outside, lock up, walk out to the back parking lot, and pop the trunk. And I hear what sounds like a dodgeball hitting concrete. And turn around, look at the building, and a red dodgeball comes bouncing out of the 4th floor solarium, bounces into the parking lot and down into the neighborhood below. Now, for anyone, and I'm sure BJ especially knows the layout of Waverly, knows that there's a neighborhood at the bottom of the hill that used to actually be Waverly property. There were buildings there at one point in time. I think it was 28 buildings total that Waverly had. Trunk wide open. I hadn't even put the tools in yet. I jump in the car and I take off down the hill. Tools still in the parking lot, trunk still open. I get down to the bottom. I open up the gate and I actually scratch the fuck out of the hood of my car with the gate. And for anyone who knows, who's been to Waverly multiple times, you remember the old long metal pipey looking gate that they used to have. I think it's still there, but they don't use it. But I scratched the shit out of the hood of my car with it. And when I finally got it open, I turned around and I looked back up the driveway and that red dodgeball was coming down the hill. So if you understand, I want to reiterate this. If you understand the layout of Waverly, I'll just say that this is funny. If you, let's just say that this is the building, right? And here's the parking lot, which is kind of already at a slant. And then you have the neighborhood down here. That ball came out from the south side of the north side of the building, bounced down into the neighborhood. It would have had to bounce back up and come back around and go down the hill. But I called Tina on the way out and I'm like, hey, look, gate's wide open. My tools are in the parking lot. Can you get Joe to pick them up and put them in the laundry room? I'll be back tomorrow. I'll explain everything. So go back up there the next morning. I tell her what happened and she goes, well, it sounds like an initiation. So are you going to be a baby about it? Or are you going to stick around? So, 16 years later, here we are talking about it. But I've been.
So you weren't a baby about it.
I was a baby about the shit. I promise you. I just stuck around, but I was kind of I was back and forth with Waverly throughout the entire time. I was on, I was off, I was on, I was off. But there was something always that drew me back to it, and I say this with the utmost respect for the owners, for the staff, and everything else. But it was never the people that drew me back. It was always the building. And to reiterate what we talked about earlier, I don't actually have problems or beef with anyone up there, whether it's Tina or Charlie or any of the staff or anything like that. Just Tina and I don't get along anymore. And that's fine. You know, some people grow apart and everything else. But at one point in time, I thought of her and Charlie like my parents, because my parents haven't ever really been around to begin with. I've always been kind of a drifter when it comes to like parental needs and stuff like that. That's why I'm so hardcore on my son about literally everything. He's always trying to stay the night at his grandma's on school nights and shit.
Yeah. I feel like any parent can relate to the throttling, the energy of just the,
Such pain in the
No,
ass,
not
dude.
a lot of people have such a strong connection to their first space that they explore when it comes to paranormal investigation. So for you, you formed that connection from the beginning. What inspires you to go outside of that, to go to other places? Because now you're at over 400 locations. What kind of inspired the let's go beyond?
You know, I was spoiled at Waverly because, you know, I investigated every single night. It was my job. So I was very spoiled. So when we started doing...
All John is thinking is, fuck you. John, you did one there, right? Just...
Yeah, with one of the teams that I was first a part of, we went and did the whole 8-hour private tour or private investigation thing back in like 2012. And oh man, it was great. It was so much fun. I had so many different EVPs and experiences that happened, and it was great.
You've only been one time?
I've only been one. That's all. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to go back, and it just I'm a broke poor hoe, so I can't, afford it.
I feel that. Here's something that I've always said to people, whether I was working there or not, is that $1,000 sounds like a lot of money. But if you have 10 people, it's $100.
Exactly. I had about half of that, and everything fell through, so I didn't get to go back. But one of these days, I will be back. So, yeah.
She is well worth it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know BJ, like I said earlier, he's going for his first time this year.
Oh,
right,
nice.
BJ?
In June. Yeah.
gosh.
So we'll kind of...
You're gonna be so hot.
So let me implore you about some things, BJ. I'm going to send you with some wisdom.
Yes, please and thank you.
It's okay to take your equipment. It's okay to take your stuff. Your REM pod, your DR60, whatever, recorders, whatever you got. It's fine to do that. But I implore you to take half of your time during your private to walk around with your eyes and your ears and nothing else. Explore every single bit of the building that they have open. Now, normally there's some places that you're not allowed to go. You cannot go into the bell tower. I know that sucks, but it's dangerous. You cannot go into the nurse's wing because it's easier to just let the haunted house stuff sit rather than pack it all up the second that the haunted house is over and open up all these rooms and stuff like that. So the only thing that actually gets taken down is the maze walls for the haunted house on the first floor. That's the only thing that gets taken down. But I implore you to explore every inch of the building that you are able to for at least half of the time that you're there, because you can do all the TikTok lives and all the REM pod feeds and everything that you need to do, whatever, in the last little bit. Now, if you're going for content and stuff like that, make sure you hit your drone stuff the second you get out, or the second you get there. You'll still have, so it's in June, so you'll have like 4 hours of daylight or something, something ridiculous. But I implore you to take half of the time to just use your eyes and your ears. Notice that in the concrete, the fibers that they use for concrete now are just small pieces of like parchment and paper and plastic and stuff like that, as to where something a lot of people don't know is that the fibers for concrete back in those times, the really soft concrete, the concrete you could shank your way through, was the fibers were horsehair from Churchill Downs here in Louisville, Kentucky. Taking consideration of heliotherapy, something that has aided in tuberculosis, but never actually aided. So heliotherapy is sun therapy. So, if you couldn't go outside because you were too sick, you could go into this room, they'd put you under a big heat lamp and you would get your UV rays, but they didn't realize that was actually not helping at all. The only thing it was doing was giving you color. Once they figured that out, they would throw you in there if you had family coming to visit you to give yourself a little tan.
Make you look a little better, healthier.
Which Waverly in its time it wasn't neglectful. It wasn't abusive. It wasn't an abusive place. It was a great place. It was state-of-the-art technology and everything that you thought you needed. But what they didn't realize is that tuberculosis was airborne, and building a building on a hill and arch it to the point to where it created airflow was a really, really bad idea. And it did not help the fact that TB ravaged through Louisville, Kentucky the way it did. Take in some of the historical aspects. The fact that our wonderful, wonderful Mitch McConnell wanted to put the Louisville Zoo there. They were going to tear down the building and put up our local zoo on top of the hill. You can fact check me on that too. That is in Courier Journal's news articles online. Somebody told me I was full of shit the other day, and I was like, go look it up. Taking consideration some of the things and some of the stories that your guide will tell you. So for instance, the room on the 5th floor, 502, is merely just a bathroom. Used to make the joke all the time about, that it was the most infamous bathroom next to Graceland. But what some of you don't realize is that 502 is also our area code. And the story about the young lady who had an affair with a doctor, and got pregnant and out of wedlock, and the guy that she was impregnated by was a doctor at the hospital, and he was married, and this was like a real sad thing. Taking consideration that there are two different alternatives. That one, it never happened, or two, it's possible that it happened because we always hear stories about neglectful and abusive stories from that timeline where our ancestors would sweep stories under the rug. And there's no LMPD report. Like, there's no report on it from local authorities. So, while you're taking your tour, just, remember that, there's some things that you can look up that are factual, and there's some of those stories that are urban legends. And the reason why is because, stories been passed down from generation to generation. You've been told the story about the lady in white that, you shouldn't pick up on the curvy road, and, because you'll be dead by the time you get down to the bottom. We've heard those stories before. And Waverly is full of them, is full of those kind of stories. But you can't say they're not real because, we don't know, first of all. And second of all, there's no paperwork to back it up. So you can't say that they are real. But we know how our ancestors were during those times. Stories could get swept up. Waverly was a self-sustaining community where it was its own area code. It was its own zip code. It was its own city. It was called Waverly Hills, Kentucky. So They didn't have a local police department. They used LMPD. They didn't want news getting out that surely, you know, if these stories are true, they didn't want stories getting out to the general public that Waverly Hills was like, you know, having all these issues. You know, there are stories that you can fact check that are actually in the news, that are in Courier Journal, such as the handicapped man that wheeled himself off of the second floor loading dock and face planted and died. There are, you know, because he just got away from people, or he got away from, you know, the people that were supposed to take care of him, and he found himself, you know, in a bad situation. Or the convicted felon that lost his cool with another staff member because that staff member was drinking and decided that he was going to taunt the ex-con. Basically just talking shit to him, and it turned into the ex-con, you know, getting a little rambunctious. And that the consequence for that was death. And if I remember correctly, so the article, it also states that he was found, he was convicted, but he was let go. There's a lot of stories that you can look up from Waverly that are actually documented. I think Courier Journal charges like $5 a month for, for back data and back archives and stuff like that. But there's a lot of cool stories too. So like our local fair, right? The Kentucky State Fair or whatever. The patients at Waverly used to knit blankets, and they'd sell them at the fair. The money would go back into the building. Remember, self-sustaining community. So the money would go back into the building. It would go back into the housing. It would go back into food and stuff like that. If you, you'll never come across one of those blankets. But you know, it's one of those things. It's just some cool small stories. You know, Candy Stripers used to sing and dance for the patients. Family members were allowed to go up there and talk and, you know, see their family members and stuff, which they probably shouldn't have been able to do, obviously. But, there's the story about Lois and Audrey. Girl got better, left, got sick again, came back, eventually got better again and left, but her sister was stuck like the entire time, and she died there. But there's so many stories, and I could talk to you about this for a decade.
What place would you recommend for people who've never been there, like myself, to start with? Is there like a specific area that you would like start with and then just kind of work your way through? Is there one place that has maybe the most activity that you would recommend?
So for as much time as I spent up there, I've come to realize something, is that there's not, haunted locations don't have hot spots, is what I've come to understand with all the time that I spent up at Waverly. Locations don't have hot spots, because I used to have investigators, run up to me, right after a tour and be like, okay, so like we got like 7 hours, because the tour takes like an hour. It's like 45 minutes to an hour because the building is huge. And they'd be like, where should we start first? After the tour is when I think you should take that time, eyes, ears, and just wander. For an investigative standpoint, anywhere that has windows that aren't broken. Now there's no broken windows up at Waverly, but what there are is the backside of the building has these big open areas, and people think they were windows. They were never windows. They were screened in porches. So anywhere for an investigative standpoint that has very little wind traffic. Now, remember, the building was built to produce air. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to find that sweet spot where you're not going to have any interference whatsoever. But There's plenty of rooms where the doors do shut. Do not shut the OR door because someone will have to break you out. The minor OR right below on the third floor has a door that will shut. You don't have to worry about someone getting you out of that one. You have to remember when you're in the body chute that the body chute, it is open to the elements. There's 3 air vents and critters are always getting in there and water and stuff like that. So you have to remember that. But if it were me and maybe I was going up there tomorrow, my favorite spot to just hang out is on the 4th floor in the children's wing. So, when you're taking the tour, they'll tell you what side of the building on each floor was a child's wing. My favorite spot to hang out is the 4th floor children's wing of the hospital, the very last room on the left. It's great for activity. You can also see the landscape of the outside as well. And you can hear everybody also. So if you're going with a big group or whatever, you can hear everybody and you can hear when they're coming. You can see when they're coming. If it's dark at the time, you can also kind of like lean over the screen area. You can kind of lean over and kind of see where everyone's at. It's a good area for like security also because, people do get past security cameras. So if you're ever worried about that, it's a good place to check that out too. But that hallway specifically has been best for seeing the ambient light from the outside come into the building and show the people that aren't there. I try not to use the word ghosts or apparitions or, it's part of being politically correct, right? So, if you, maybe you have someone who is non-binary, you try to make sure to use the pronouns they, them, their, right? So it's kind of the same thing with me with ghosts is that I try to just remember the names. I try to remember to make sure to call them people because that's what they are, regardless of, what the actual situation is. But, if you have a nice clear night, even with clouds too, which is really odd, but even with clouds, the ambient light, it sources through the building. You don't need a flashlight. The only lights that are in the building are highlighted, the staircases. You don't need a flashlight walking through the building. Your eyes adjust to everything. It's the wildest thing because if you go to any other place, you go to Trans Allegheny, whatever, the light does not source through the building that way.
Yeah, otherwise you'll run into stuff.
Yeah. If you're not using a flashlight, you probably will trip over a chair or something. But the light doesn't source through that way. With Waverly being on the hill and, one of the tallest hills, out in that direction, the light sources through the building like you wouldn't believe. You don't need anything. Now you need it for the body chute. There's no light in there. You need it for the first floor. Half of the building on the first floor is covered, like the windows are for the haunted house and stuff. So, but the rest of it, you don't need a flashlight. It's the craziest thing. And I know people probably roast me in the comments or whatever about, well, there's plenty of buildings that do that. Not like Waverly.
So what took you out of Waverly into the other spaces? Because now you've gone everywhere.
So I was, it's part of being, I was about ready to say fluorescent. I don't know. I can't remember what the fucking term is. Part about being transparent is that I was fired from Waverly during the lawsuit. And I was in depression mode for like a year. And I didn't know what to do, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to be around anybody. My heart was broken. It was the worst time of my life. And I needed something to fill that void. And there was some of the creator friends and stuff that I had made while I was working there on the last stint that was like, dude, just do what we do. And I had already been doing that with Waverly Hills social media to begin with. I was already, in it. Like I was already, I think by the time I left, Waverly had like 30 viral videos or something just off of that account. And so I was already kind of doing it. I kind of already knew what I was doing. And it was just filling a void and a hole. And I think the hole has been filled. That's what she said. But I think the hole has been filled because I do feel good. I do feel confident that if I was to go to Waverly, I wouldn't have like a mental breakdown or, or wouldn't feel some type of way or whatever. But it took me to all kinds of different places. It took me to Pennhurst State School and Hospital. Most of everyone knows that as Pennhurst Asylum, which sounds like we're not too far off losing that. Took me to Shawshank Redemption. Took me to the Ohio State Reformatory. It took me to Bill Manor. It took me to Fairfield County Infirmary, Indiana State Sanatorium, Madison Seminary, West Virginia Penn, Franklin Castle, Hudson River State Hospital, literally all of Gary, Indiana, Louisiana, the Haunted Hotel, the Hanging Gel in DeRidder, Louisiana. There's a convention that we're about ready to do. I think it's in Lafayette, Louisiana. Just a small little thing or whatever. But I mean, it's taken me to so many different places. And I think the reason why this is the reason why it's either close or over 400 places is because I realized really quickly that I was spoiled at Waverly and that ghost hunting was expensive. So between traveling and everything else, I started to find locations like asylums and hospitals and sanatoriums. In the occasional school, which I'm not big on haunted schools. I'm not a huge believer that, many of the schools that are proclaimed to be haunted actually are, but, that's my own demon and I fight that every day. But it's taken me to a lot of places simply because, your boy's broke and so is the rest of America, and ghost hunting is expensive. And I had such a dire need to fill that hole. And I needed it. My daughter has autism. My son has ADHD. My oldest daughter has ADD. They say that all of those things are, come from the parents. And in my older age, I'm starting to see it. Like, the obsessiveness, compulsiveness of getting things done and having to have things done immediately. I live in a condo in an apartment complex where, I had a problem recently with a real bad leak. I came home the night before New Year's Eve and the cabinet was on top of the kitchen counter. And, I had a flood in my dining room, all kinds of stuff. I'm not waiting for the maintenance guys. Everything that got ruined is still outside on the porch, actually. Like, I'm a very clean person. I don't play around with that kind of stuff. The counter and everything that was damaged is still out there. They're supposed to come pick it up tomorrow, whatever. That doesn't matter. I had already cut out the drywall by the time that they found out that there was a problem. So if that gives you like an idea of being a clean person or needing to have things done right now, that's what happened when I left Waverly. And it sucks, but I was in tears. I was upset. It was like I lost my mom. It's like I lost a family member and I was devastated. And that's why the number of locations was so quick. I did that in like 2 years.
You went from being a non-believer to believing because of Waverly in people that aren't there. People that are there that aren't there. Mm-hmm. I think that's how it was. Yeah. Do you find that having gone to around 400 locations over 2 years has just really cemented that concept for you, that that world does exist?
You know, I think that all of the experiences I've had, not just due to Waverly, but due to all these other places too, has cemented like there's people that believe in God, there's people that believe in Satan. And, you know, I do believe that there's something that needs to be in place for people to stay after life. I'm not a big religious person. I'm not huge. Don't come for me, whatever. I'm not a huge religious person. I'm not sure that there's, you know, a guy in the sky that's, you know, looking down on me at all times, but there's got to be something to hold people. Cause that's like that's like a level of magic. We only see this kind of stuff in Marvel movies. We only see it in Stranger Things, Harry Potter, all the supernatural, all these different, that's all that we see is just those areas. We don't see everything else. So it's like a level of magic to believe that there's people that are there that aren't. It's a level of magic to believe that there are two people that had a fallen out that are looking after those who are well and healthy and evil and sick. So I think that throughout my experiences, I think it's submitted me to believe without a doubt that the afterlife exists, regardless of, you know, I mean, because my mind changed quickly the very first day I started there. And ever since that day, every place I go looking for it.
Is that why you keep going? Is it like almost an addiction of sorts?
Compulsion.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Compulsion, not addiction.
You know, I think it is. And, you know, because anything that I touch, it becomes an addiction. It's wild that I'm not on drugs. But like,
your drug is the paranormal and Harry Potter.
Yeah. Everything that I touch, and it's hard to stop and just be like, okay, relax. You don't need the Lego Stranger Things Krill house just because it's a haunted location and because you've been obsessed with the show since its inception. Yes,
you do, and I need one too.
I feel that.
I was gonna say I don't judge. I have the Lego Ecto one, so and this is blurred, but all of those are little horror Lego figurines. Yeah. So I don't judge.
Yeah, the little custom minifigures. Yeah.
Yes. I have I'm starting to run out of space, but yeah. So I don't judge people and their collections unless it's something really gross, and then I judge very strongly. Now, when I say gross, I'm talking about the people that collect like toenail clippings and stuff like that. Like just generally just no.
I just watched Human Centipede for the first time over the weekend. And I can't believe that I had the stomach or the balls to watch the second one.
Yeah, you went for two?
And the second one was the second one sucked, but it was more gross than the first one. And I found out yesterday that there's a third one.
Now, don't do it. Come on, Vince. Don't do it. Now, do you watch horror films in general?
Yeah, I'm a huge I'm a really big horror nut. You know,
it sounded like you said a horror nut.
That's what I said.
A horror nut. Okay.
A horror nut?
A horror nut. A horror nut.
He's a horror.
He's into horrors.
I feel like that's a line for a pimp or something.
He's an urban masturbator into horror nuts.
But yeah, no, I'm a big horror nut.
What's your favorite?
You know, it probably always sticks back to what was it, 1978, John Carpenter classic Halloween. With a very, very close tie with Nightmare on Elm Street. But it kind of got dethroned with Terrifier, honestly.
I could tell you have more Terrifier in your background than you do any other horror icon.
Well, I've got horror stuff upstairs, like in the hallway and stuff like that. But like, it's really kind of dethroned Halloween, and not to say that I don't love the series, because I absolutely do. I even love the stuff that you all probably hate. The last three that came out. It's always the last three that came out. It's that the Halloween series, and then it was Star Wars. But Star Wars fans are the fucking worst.
Hey,
I'm a Star Wars fan. That comes from a Star Wars fan. Star Wars fans are the worst. Oh, I hated the last three movies. Go fuck
I'm
yourself.
fucking awesome. All right.
You know what I'm saying?
I liked the last Star Wars movies.
And then Star Wars fans will argue, okay, well, if you like the last three, then you're not a real fan. I was like, I like fucking lightsabers and people fucking people up and being crazy, and the drama and everything about those movies is fantastic. I got to tell you what I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the original trilogy. I enjoyed Anakin's story time. I enjoyed all of it.
I was a fan of Darth Maul. I know not a lot of people were, but I loved Darth Maul.
Yeah, but that guy, whatever his name was, Ray, the guy who played Darth Maul, was out of his mind. Like in real time. Like he beat his wife and shit.
The character design though was awesome. Like for the actual character of Darth Maul, that like overall character design and his weapons, he was awesome. Yeah. So then for you, you've got the television show coming out on Beacon, the Urban Investigator. Is that your next step, or do you have something else planned beyond that?
Well, that's the next step, is to get that out. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for money. And that sounds shitty. But I would explore and investigate all day, every day without posting content just for myself if I could.
It's expensive, like you said. It's
expensive. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't care about posting online whatsoever. It's one of those things where I want to, you have to be entertaining. You have to be, you have to have fun. You have to be serious. You have to be, this is going to be controversial. You have to be Sam and Colby. You have to be Jason Hawes, and you have to be, Zach Bagans, all in one. You have to be everything all at once while also being true to yourself. So, my fun take on everything is all the stuff that you do behind the scenes. So I enjoy, me and my friend Olivia, we did this thing. I had a really big public investigation, public overnight at ISS this past year, under my other brand, Urban Investigations, not masturbations.
That's only legal in Vegas.
Yeah, that's that. But we, and anytime I do ISS, everyone just sticks around the next day, because I think it's like $25 to hunt or whatever, or to explore stuff, whatever, during the day. And the owner, Greg Larson, he's a great dude. He's like, if you had a public overnight, the night before, you just stay and hang out if you want to. So, me and my friend Olivia, we were on the roof and we did this, we did the bees in the trap and the, whatever that fucking trend that was going around for a little bit. We did that. So I love doing stuff like that too. It's just usually not my normal content, but, I enjoy the fun aspect of it, because if you don't, you lose yourself and you become a dickbag. And that's just to put it lightly. Like, I see so many people. There's this guy, there's these brothers that are on Facebook, and they get a lot of shit. And it's because everyone thinks that they fake things or that they're disrespectful or whatever, but you have to have fun, right? So, Jake and Noah, they used to be Spirit Stalkers, and I think now they're not separated, but they just have their own accounts now. But Noah's doing this thing online where he's like, he yells the word spirits in a haunted building and asks them if they've ever heard of like Kendrick Lamar or Lady Gaga or some shit. And he'll walk around the location with a speaker blaring "Not Like Us" or whatever, and you can look at it and be like, man, that's disrespectful. But the way I see it, the guy's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's a fresh take. I don't necessarily care for all the screaming and yelling that the boys do, but, they're just having fun. Let them have fun. because at the end of the day, right, we're talking about being respectful. How many times have you called someone a cunt to their face?
Daily.
BJ?
not often.
Okay, a bitch, an asshole, a dickhead.
Oh yeah, like
5
anything.
times,
Sure.
not more.
I
John?
flip my best friend off every single day I see.
Okay, great. So we talk to each other and act a fucking lunatic to each other all the time, all day, every day. Do you think that people just became prim and proper when they passed?
Not at all. No.
No. Unless you are Cutler Beckett from Pirates of the Caribbean with that crazy accent and everything else. He was an evil, condescending asshole, but was the most prim, proper man you've ever seen in your life, right? You're like, wow, this guy has manners for being such a dickhead. But I think that it's a fresh take, and where I probably won't ever do anything myself like that, just because first of all, I ain't got the vocals to yell like that. And second of all, it's just not my style or anything. It's not what I do. But, someone who does have that style and someone who is having fun is learn how to engage with their audience and grow in such a manner. There is, that's your Sam and Colby. That's probably your next Sam and Colby. It's probably Jake and Noah. I mean, they're catching so much shit just like Sam and Colby are. Sam and Colby will always catch shit. But I think the younger generation doing what they're doing, and it's stirring up activity also.
That's good. I mean, again, if you're doing it with respect and you're having fun, that's the whole point, right? You're trying to engage with the spirits and in a way to, you want to be vibrating high and you want to be having a good time and, hopefully, you catch something.
Now, you mentioned with BJ going into Waverly and spending time just being their eyes, ears, and just sensing. And it sounds like with you, when you go in there, you can just feel them around you. You feel that presence. So have you found that the more investigations you do, you don't need equipment, that you can just sense that realm around you without the bells and the whistles?
The addictive personality gets me into trouble with ghost hunting equipment. I love ghost hunting equipment, but I hate ghost hunting equipment.
So pricey.
And I hate it for what it does to the environment of the place that you're investigating. Because here's the kicker is that you go on TikTok Live, you see, maybe someone's investigating their basement. I don't shit on people for investigating their basements. I used to. I did. But here's the kicker about everything is that there has been a death in every centimeter of this earth at one point in time. How many centimeters are in a square foot? How much square footage do you have in your house? You multiply that by them and you take how many centimeters that is. That's how many people that have died in your house. Maybe not in your house. Maybe it's just the ground, before your house was built. Maybe it was a dinosaur. Maybe it was a dog. Maybe it was a cat. Maybe it was all those people. There has been death on every single centimeter of this planet at one point in time. And you can account that for aquatic too. So is it that hard to believe that even in new construction that someone would be investigating their bedroom or their, so I don't shit on it. But you go on TikTok Live and you see like someone who's got 15 pieces of equipment out and they're all right next to each other. And as an investigator, you're like, no, stop it. It's not like, that's not how this works. Everything is going to set each other off and it's just going to look like you have massive amounts of, whatever you've got going on because the REM pod's going to set off the walkie's going to set off, the laser light or whatever you have. So it's, equipment is so, I think it's important to have I think that equipment is important to have for an entertainment aspect. I think that it's very important for things like that. And I'm not saying that the equipment itself doesn't get activity or doesn't get evidence, because I think it absolutely does, but it depends on how you use it, where you use it, how you use it, and the time. So where I love ghost hunting equipment, I'm not fond of it in actually using it. it's more like an entertainment thing for me, I think, because you're like, oh my God, the blue light went off. You're yay.
The cat balls.
The cat balls.
Need a visual.
It's a visual haunting that you'll probably never get. So, because how many times have you seen a full bodied apparition? For me, it's been one time.
Yeah, not often.
Yeah. I've only had it happen one time. I've seen plenty of shadows, and I think that that's very much could be, your mind playing tricks on you. Because how many things, shapes, objects look like a human? There's specifically, okay, BJ, this is for you again. On the third floor in the children's ward, there's a piece in the wall of concrete that's not busted out, but it's fallen out. And it's been that way for 15 years. And if you're down the hallway and you shine a flashlight, it looks like there's a person there. So, it's stuff like that you have to look out for. But, so I think that equipment itself, I love it, but, I love it as a collector and as an entertainment aspect, but I'm not fond of using it on being like having a serious investigation, I guess.
I want to know about this full-bodied apparition you experienced.
It was at Waverly, and it's not a place you would ever think. We were so the tour office has changed many times, and at the time it was on the second floor by the loading dock, and there was a whole group. I think it was actually a pretty hefty group for the private. It was like 15 people or something, and I try to keep myself busy while they're investigating because you have to stay there. But, I just try to stay in the tour office. And while I'm doing that, I think of other trends to use, other things to post and stuff like that when I was doing it. I had heard the double doors open, and you're not supposed to go outside when you're on a private. Just because, there's no way to track you on cameras or anything like that if you're outside of the building. Now, if you want to go to your car, then, we'll turn the alarm off. We'll let you go out to your car and, come right back. At least that's how it was done at the time. And so I opened up the tour office door and I looked, wasn't nobody there. I turned around and looked down the hallway. This is in between the kitchen and the dining room. And I know that sounds like home ec, but they had a huge kitchen and they had a huge dining room. It's like a big giant restaurant. And I turn around from the double doors and I look, and we have a few lights on in the hallway just for that area. And standing in the middle, right underneath one of the overheads, it was like you had a giant piece of black construction paper that you just cut a very detailed version of a person standing in the hallway.
Was it a man or a woman? Could you tell that part of it? Or?
It looked like a man.
Yeah.
It always gets to me because it obviously freaked me out. I mean, it freaked anybody out. You don't walk away from something like that and think, oh, that's normal.
Right.
And, I took my ass into the tour office and didn't come out the rest of the night. But I think that the only other thing that I've ever seen was like a full on Ghostbusters-esque type of person where it was. You ever seen 1408?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you remember how the spirits were in the movie? They were very real, but it was very like TV static, but you could see all the details.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen one time, and it was a woman in a red polka dot dress. I figured maybe she was a candy striper or something like that, or maybe I got the polka dots wrong. Maybe it was a gown, like a hospital gown. But to me at the time, it looked like it was a red polka dot dress with white being the biggest part of the color for the dress. But brown hair, green eyes, which I'm colorblind, so they're probably just brown. But
you said they had cameras there. right? Do they
Yes.
are they filming? Are they like recording all of this?
No.
So you can check it later for
so the system
operations?
does record, but they're strictly worried about people getting in.
Right.
They're not so much worried about, catching evidence. Now I know some locations are like that. They'll have cameras, every aspect of the building, but with Waverly, it's just on the outside, the tour office, just the places that it makes sense where someone would get into.
Right.
But and that's not to say anyone trying anything stupid or, whatever, don't at me for whatever, but, be respectful when you go to locations. Don't do stupid shit. So they're not so much worried about like catching evidence on the security cameras, but there's been a couple times that I had been watching cameras doing security, and I've caught stuff on camera before that were a little strange, like doors opening and shutting and there was nobody there, or things happening at the tour office when no one was in the building.
Is there anything specific that you do to prepare yourself for these tours or investigations to protect yourself, and then afterwards to make sure that, you leave these spaces just you?
No. And the reason why is because it doesn't bother me if they did. Okay. Like I said, I'm not a big religious person. And, I have stuff happen in the house every once in a while that, might have come from something or might have, hung out for a minute or whatever, but it was never to a point to where it was like a problem. I've never seen what I thought was a demon. I've never seen, what we don't talk about is angels. Why have no one found an angel yet? Anyway, no, I don't do anything to prepare. And the only reason why is because if you are religious, you shouldn't. And the reason why is because it's going to take your evidence away statistically. You go into a location and you douse yourself in sage and all this kind of stuff. What if those people that aren't there, what if that runs them off? They don't want to talk to you because, you've doused yourself in whatever protection spells or, I know plenty of people that are like witches and stuff like that don't even do that.
Well, we've even brought that up in terms of, I do sometimes wonder if sometimes we raise our vibration, if you will, or neutralize ourselves so strongly before going into a space that it actually pushes all of that away and out.
Yeah. I mean, for all the time that I worked at Waverly, I've seen a whole manner of things with people doing certain things before they walk in the building. There's been plenty of times where, Vince is on parking lot duty. And they're like, all right, cool. So he's sitting out there parking cars. And just for regular tours too. People get out of their cars and spray themselves with their homemade whatever, I've seen people eat peppers in the parking lot to enhance their senses.
That's crazy.
We used to do that up at Waverly on that last stint or whatever. There's this guy, Jason. He used to grow his own peppers and stuff. I don't know if he still does. I'm sure he does. But he would grow like jalapenos. He would grow ghost peppers and Carolina Reapers and all that kind of stuff, and he'd bring them in. He'd be like, all right, who wants to take a bite? And everyone was like, oh, I don't know about this time. And, there was a couple times where the shit was just too hot for some people and they throw up or, whatever. But
I wonder if coffee grounds work. I know some people use coffee grounds to enhance the senses and cleanse the palate. So take coffee beans with you, just smell them as you go into each room.
Can you? Oh yeah, which reminds me, talking about food. Can you bring any your own food into Waverly?
I love how it's just like, hey, you used to work there. What's up?
It might have changed.
From what I understand, so you can bring food, you can bring water, but they don't want you taking it past the point of the laundry room.
Right, because you don't want to be littering and all that.
Well, because so many people, they just want you to take a water bottle. Something that has a screw lid, but you can't really do that with food. So yeah, they don't really want you having food inside of the building per se. But I think with the laundry room, I mean, we used to order pizza and stuff all the time, and plenty of
Because if you're doing an overnight,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Imagine being that pizza guy. We're going back up the hill, guys.
man. There's so many people that there's so many times that I would have to meet the pizza guy
They don't want to go.
out at one of the, like, past the gates. Like, they wouldn't come up the road. They'd make me meet them down at the thing, and I had to drive all the way down the hill, all the way down to the main road. And I'm just like, dude, give me a break. People are so superstitious about stuff, and the people who aren't in it or don't experience it or not around it, they just think it's all just demonic and devil stuff and all that kind of stuff, which maybe it is. I mean, I find myself, dressing in black craft half the time. So I'm not satanic either. I just really like their merch line.
Where can people find your content and more about your investigations?
I am on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Threads. I was on Blue Sky for a little bit, but I didn't really fit in over there. And I'm also, hold on, let me just make sure I got all this. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube. I have Discord. If you're into video games, you want to come over to Twitch and hang out for a little while. I'm on Twitch, Snapchat, Lemonade, and and the show Urban Investigator is supposed to release later on this year on streambeacontv.com. My official website is urbaninvestigator.com, and I also do public overnights. I haven't started booking events yet, but that's more to come a little bit later this year, because I'm going to do a lot less of them because I'm busy with other stuff. But I do all kinds of stuff. But you can find me this year at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. You can find me at Booze on the Battleship, the Cajun Country Paracon, Pennhurst Paracon, Hanover Tavern at the end of the month. There's like 5 I'm forgetting, but I'm a really busy dude. Go to urbaninvestigator.com for, everything. And if you happen to go to one of these conventions that I'm going to be at, I will be presenting be presenting a PowerPoint on a presentation I like to call abandonment issues. I've been working really hard on it and trying to get it completed. I've put a lot of time into it, and I think everyone is going to love it.
I can't wait to get my hands on one of your I Have Abandonment Issues shirts.
Yeah.
They look great. I saw a preview of it online, and so this has been awesome. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
just, I appreciate all the advice, and I'm excited. I'm excited to go, and it's fun to talk to people who have had so much experience to just to get excited about, right, and think about, like, what do I need to bring and all these types of things, but also just knowing that, like, I don't know, it feels like it's a place that is more than, you're not there to get scared. You're there to have a good time and respect the spirits that are there, but also, sharing something that we all can share, and like people that go there, right? Mm-hmm. You have that conversation. You can have that online, in person, and it's fun.
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, and I think everyone can relate. It's just be a good person, have a lot of fun, don't be a dick, and I think those are just some good laws to live by.
John Thomas.
John, you ain't said nothing the whole damn show.
I said a little bit.
He's
Not
a
too
little
much,
bit.
but a little bit. But no, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, I enjoyed being on. I really enjoy it. I especially like when we can get, podcasts where we can get off topic and talk about everything and not just what's going on, talk about music and, and pop culture and stuff that's going on in the world. I really enjoy not just sticking to one subject.
Oh yeah, anytime you want to come on, we will happily go on tangents. We will talk horror, music, Star Wars, Harry Potter, you name it.
Yeah.
I love you've got. Okay, now I have to know before we wrap it up. Which wand are you holding? Is that the elder wand?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes. Okay, I thought I spotted it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of further back. Woo-hoo!
Yep.
I think we're best friends now, Vince.
Welcome to the Losers Club, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually wore my Pennywise shoes today, so
Hell yeah. Let's go.
on brand. All right, BJ Segura, do you want to bring us home?
Absolutely. So again, thank you, Vince, for coming on with us. This has been such a fun time just to nerd out and talk all the things paranormal. And yeah, we would love to obviously have you on again to just go in more depth of other places that you've been to and also just all the nerdy things.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in to this episode of 3Haunted Podcasts with your hosts. I'm BJ Segura.
Did you forget your name for a moment?
He's like, who am I again?
I forgot the order. I'm like, wait, I say it first.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
I'm the quiet one. Just kidding. I'm John Thomas.
If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss our amazing guests like Vince Kelien.
Yay!
Don't forget to check out 3hauntedpodcast.com, where you can find all of our past, current season episodes. Wow, I said that too fast. Let me try that again. Where you can find all of our past and current season episodes, as well as guest information and all kinds of awesome fucking merch.
Until next time.